She didn't cry. She didn't explain. Just a cold, scripted voicemail like a business transaction. I was folding laundry when her voice played through my phone, calm, mechanical, final. Ryan, I want a divorce. My lawyer will be in touch. I listened to it 3 times, expecting a break in her tone. Some crack. A pause. A trace of hesitation, like a breath held too long or a whisper lost behind teeth. But there was nothing. Just her sterile voice and a lawyer's name. As if I were an appointment she was canceling. As if 7 years of marriage boiled down to a 30-second audio file. I didn't feel hurt. Not yet. Just paused. Like the world forgot to breathe. My hands froze mid-fold, a pair of her socks dangling between my fingers like some trivial relic of a life that no longer existed. The spin cycle hummed behind me, oblivious. Everything else kept moving while I stood still. I didn't call her back. Not out of pride, something deeper. Like speaking would collapse whatever fragile framework was holding me together. I wasn't ready to hear her voice again, not after that voicemail turned it into something I didn't recognize. It wasn't just the message. It was how prepared it sounded. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like the decision had been made long before she hit record. No tremor in her voice. No sorry. No why. She said she loved me once. I remember the way her fingers used to trace the lines on my palm like she was trying to read my future. And now she won't even speak to me in real time. Just a voicemail. Cold. Scripted. Surgical. I sat down on the edge of her bed, my bed now, I guess, and stared at the spot where her hair used to rest on the pillow. It still smelled faintly of coconut and lavender. That mix she used to spray on her hair when she was running late. Funny how smells linger longer than love. Maybe that was the point. Maybe she wanted it clean. No confrontation. No scene. Just an exit. But a part of me wonders, did she record that message while I was still asleep? While I was making coffee? Did she check it for background noise, make sure it sounded professional? Or maybe it wasn't her idea at all. Maybe someone told her this was the best way. The safest. The way to avoid mess. But this is messier. Because when someone screams, at least you know they feel something. But this was silence with a script. A goodbye with punctuation. And I was left sitting in a half-folded life, listening to the echo of the woman I thought I knew vanish. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't even use my name until the second sentence. Just, Ryan, I want a divorce. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I tried. Just a verdict. No trial. And that's how it began. With a voicemail. He offered me coffee. Then I saw the photo on his desk. The office smelled like polished wood and stale coffee. The kind of place where people wear practiced smiles and speak in soft, decisive tones while ending lives with a pen. I sat in the waiting room for 10 minutes before Jake Whitmore called my name. He looked like every other lawyer I'd ever imagined, sharp suit, calm voice, the kind of haircut that said, I bill by the hour. He offered me coffee. I declined. Something about the warmth felt dishonest. I followed him into a minimalist office. Gray walls. A single plant near the window. The hum of a city too busy to notice heartbreak. That's when I saw the photo. Framed. Prominently placed on the desk. A sunlit beach, pale blue sky. And there she was, Vanessa, smiling like nothing had ever hurt her. Her sunglasses were pushed into her hair, and her hand rested on Jake's chest like it belonged there. She looked happy. Not the kind of happy you fake for strangers. Not the kind we use to take photos of just to convince ourselves we were okay. This was something else. The kind of joy that doesn't need a caption. His arm was around her waist. His mouth close to her temple. There's a difference between professional and personal. And I knew instantly which side they stood on. How long have you two been working together? I asked. Jake's mouth opened, then closed. His jaw tightened. The kind of silence that screams. He didn't deny it. Didn't even try. I felt something inside me settle. Not like peace, more like steel. Cold. Straight. Final. I stood without another word. Left the papers on the desk and signed. The receptionist called after me. I didn't look back. My hands trembled as I pushed through the heavy glass door, but my thoughts finally were clear. It wasn't just a divorce. It was a strategy. She hadn't just left me. She had planned it. With him. The man she now trusted with her case, her rights, her future. And he? He smiled and offered me coffee. Like we were equals. The wind hit me as I stepped outside, sharp, unfiltered. For the first time in days, I welcomed the sting. I didn't know what came next. But I knew what wouldn't happen. I wouldn't be the man who signed away his dignity for someone else's convenience. Not anymore. She made her move. Now it was my turn. She slipped up. One folder on our shared drive didn't get deleted. I wasn't looking for it. I was scrolling through old contracts, trying to find the vendor list for the third quarter when I saw it. Q3 transfers, a folder tucked between archived invoices. The name meant nothing at first. Harmless. Bureaucratic. But something about the last modified date caught my eye. It was recent, too recent. 2 days before the voicemail. Back when I still thought she was mine. Inside, a spreadsheet. Neat rows. Clean formatting. Movement of funds, my funds. Labeled as internal realignment. But the signatures were off. My digital sign-off copy-pasted like a cheap watermark. Dates I didn't remember authorizing. Transfers I never approved. And then I saw her initials. VC tucked into the metadata like a ghost she forgot to hide. She didn't delete the file. Maybe she thought I wouldn't notice. Or maybe she thought I wouldn't dare look. Then I found it. Buried in a folder labeled legal drafts. A document so brazen it made my skin go cold. A stock transfer. Drafted. Signed. Dated. Under my name. Only I didn't sign it. I stared at the signature, my own, replicated with terrifying accuracy. She'd practiced it. Or maybe had someone else do it. It didn't matter. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a failed marriage. This was a strategy. A removal. She wasn't leaving me. She was trying to erase me. From the company we built. From the contracts. From the narrative. That voicemail, that cold, perfect little voicemail, wasn't a goodbye. It was step 7 in a plan I hadn't even realized I was part of. She was halfway through the heist while I was still mourning the marriage. I closed the folder. Copied everything to a flash drive. My hand shook as I held it, not from panic, from clarity. She'd already started burning bridges. She just didn't think I'd notice the smoke. But now I did. And I wasn't about to let her finish the blueprint to my disappearance. Her inbox was a vault. And someone left it open. It was the iPad. The one we kept in the kitchen drawer, synced years ago, forgotten under takeout menus and dead pens. She must have assumed it was wiped. Or maybe she thought I'd never bother checking it. But when I opened the cover, her inbox bloomed across the screen like a wound split open. No password prompt. No two-factor alert. Just access. A vault door, wide open. And inside? Not just betrayal. Logistics. Threads labeled with code names, autumn shift, midnight asset, ledger fog. It read like espionage, but it was all real. Hotel receipts tied to business conferences I never attended. Expenses routed through shell accounts. Messages to David. David. My business partner. The man who toasted us at our wedding, hand on my shoulder, voice thick with supposed brotherhood. There was a thread from 6 months ago. She called him Red in the subject line. He replied, "You'll have everything soon." She answered, "I just need him to sign off first." And just like that, the air left the room. I sat there, staring at the glass screen, watching their strategy unfold in bullet points and timestamps. There was no passion in their words. No apologies. Just plans. I didn't feel rage. Not even heartbreak. Just silence. Because this wasn't a betrayal of love. It was a hostile acquisition. And I was the final asset. She didn't just burn the bridge between us. She mined it. Then waited, smiling, while I wandered forward, unsuspecting, unarmed. The wedding photo on my desk caught the light. I glanced at it. David, in his tailored suit, standing beside me. His smile smug in hindsight. Vanessa's hand in mine, her veil curled like fog. They both looked so convincing. So invested. And maybe they were. Just not in me. I powered down the iPad. Set it back in the drawer like nothing had changed. Because that's what she wanted, my ignorance. But now I knew. And the thing about stepping on a mine is, you don't have to. Not if you learn the pattern. She filed a restraining order, said I yelled too loud during an argument about light bulbs. It came in a manila envelope. Stamped. Official. The kind of document you don't open, you unwrap. Like a gift you didn't ask for. A temporary restraining order. Filed under claims of emotional instability, escalated behavior, and a bizarre detail that felt like parody. He yelled about light bulbs. Light bulbs? I read it twice, then again. My breath stayed steady, but my hands, they wouldn't stop moving. As if my body knew something I didn't. As if it understood before my mind did. This was a setup. She said I frightened her. That I raised my voice during a disagreement over utilities. That I slammed a cabinet. That I created an unsafe emotional environment. And then, the twist, she had a witness. Our neighbor. The one who waves too hard. The one Vanessa once called a human security camera. He filed a statement. Said he heard shouting. Said he feared for her safety. I remember the day she brought him banana bread. Now I understood why. This wasn't divorce. This wasn't heartbreak. This was narrative control. She wasn't just ending our marriage. She was rewriting it. Framing herself as the survivor and me, the unstable antagonist, penned into her version of the truth with enough legal ink to make it stick. It wasn't even about the restraining order itself. It was about framing the board, removing my proximity, cutting off my options, redefining who I was to the world before I even had a chance to speak. I was boxed in. By stories whispered under oath. By words arranged like chess pieces. I could almost see her hand moving them, bishop to d4, knight to e5. Me cornered. But what she didn't know, what David didn't know, was that I'd stopped playing checkers weeks ago. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to fight in public. I wasn't going to let her paint me into a cliché. I was going to rebuild the board, one quiet move at a time. I hired Lauren Grant. Her first words to me were, "I don't do feelings. I do wins." She wore black. Everything black. A blazer like armor, heels that sounded like declarations, and eyes that didn't flinch, not even when I told her about the forged signature, the restraining order, or the man who gave a toast at my wedding before sleeping with my wife. "Lauren Grant," she said. "I don't do feelings. I do wins." She didn't offer a smile. Didn't ask how I was holding up. She just opened her laptop and asked for logins. In 20 minutes, she knew more about my finances than I did. In 40, she was already requesting subpoenas. By the end of the day, she'd built a timeline. Her first real words to me after the pitch, the intake, the paperwork, were simple. "Your wife isn't messy. She's calculated." She paused. Then, but she got cocky. That sentence echoed through me like a sermon. Lauren found the second apartment, leased under a fake name. Vanessa's handwriting, slightly altered, but not enough to fool someone who checks property records for fun. She triangulated phone pings, Vanessa's, David's, mine. She pulled hotel security footage. She traced a burner email account that linked to Vanessa's old Etsy login, something even I forgot existed. Every detail she uncovered wasn't just evidence. It was architecture. The shape of betrayal rendered in data points and court-admissible formats. I started sleeping again. Not because I felt safe. I wasn't. But because someone like Lauren existed. Someone who didn't care how betrayed I felt, how hollow I'd become, or how carefully Vanessa smiled while destroying me. Lauren didn't care about the story. She cared about the outcome. I remember sitting across from her, watching her type like the keyboard had insulted her. "You know," I said, "this feels like war." She didn't look up. "It is war," she said. "But now you're not outnumbered." And just like that, the tides began to shift. Quietly. Precisely. No scenes. No rage. Just someone finally fighting for me the way Vanessa had fought against me. And this time, we were playing a different game. He walked into court like he was late to brunch, then dropped a bomb on her. He wore a blazer 2 sizes too tight and sunglasses he didn't bother removing until the bailiff asked. "Marcus." I barely remembered him, just a name on a thread, a face in a blurry hotel mirror. But Vanessa remembered. I could see at the moment he stepped into the courtroom. Her shoulders tightened. Just slightly. The kind of flinch she only made when control slipped through her fingers. He strolled in like he'd mistaken the hearing for a networking event. No tie. Too much cologne. But his posture, that was what struck me. He wasn't afraid. He was ready. Lauren leaned toward me. Whispered, "He's not on their witness list." I nodded, heart beating slow and steady. This was unexpected, but not uninvited. When he took the stand, the courtroom held its breath. Even the judge looked curious. And then, Marcus cleared his throat and began to dismantle the scaffolding of Vanessa's case. He talked about the affair, yes, but more than that, he laid out the choreography. The sequence. The meetings before the restraining order. The group chats labeled contingency. Her admissions that she needed a soft landing in case David bailed. But the part that silenced even Vanessa's attorney? She told me the abuse stuff was just leverage, Marcus said, his voice flat, his eyes locked on no one in particular. She said it's what women have to do if they want to win in court. She laughed when she said it. Gasps. Not loud, but real. The kind that leak out when someone says the thing everyone's too afraid to say. Vanessa's face didn't fall. It fractured. A twitch near her eye. The way her lip pressed against her teeth like a child caught lying. Her hands clenched beneath the table, her nails leaving tiny half-moons in her palm. For the first time since this all began, she didn't look polished. She looked exposed. I didn't smile. I documented. Every word. Every shift. Every glance between her and her lawyer. I took notes. Not out of vindication, but because this moment mattered. It wasn't victory. Not yet. But it was the crack in the glass. and all Lauren needed was a crack. When Marcus stepped down, he didn't look at me. He didn't need to. He'd done what he came to do. Not for me, not for justice, but because she burned him too. And now the betrayer was being betrayed. Not by accident, by design. The judge looked at her like she was a math problem that didn't add up. You could hear the air shift, not with sound but with stillness. That sharp, surgical quiet that only exists in rooms where truth is finally louder than noise. The judge leaned forward, hands steepled, reading glasses perched at the edge of his nose. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words hit like gravity. Restraining order, dismissed. Asset claims, denied. Mr. Hale's legal rights, fully restored. Vanessa didn't move. She just blinked. Once, then again. Rapid and shallow, like her eyes were rebooting. The judge kept reading, voice steady as stone, citing manipulation, bad faith filings, and the phrase that stuck in my spine like a cold nail: coordinated emotional coercion. He said it without malice, just observation, like diagnosing a condition. Vanessa's lawyer slouched in his chair like the air had been sucked from his lungs. A legal technician with no more arguments to calibrate. Vanessa. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. But her stillness betrayed her. This wasn't the script. This wasn't the final act she'd rehearsed. Where I walked away bitter and broken while she stood framed in sympathy and curated regret. No, the camera had flipped, and she was no longer the protagonist. I felt no joy, no triumph, just a quiet unfolding, like watching a house of cards fall in reverse, and realizing every lie she'd stacked was now a page in the evidence binder. I glanced at her once, briefly. She looked at me like a stranger in a dream she didn't remember starting. For the first time, I think she saw it. I wasn't the man she'd tried to erase. I was the man who walked through fire and started cataloging the matches. Lauren touched my arm. Just a tap. No words. Her version of applause. And that's when I realized this wasn't just the end of her version of us. It was the end of her control. Not with fireworks, but with a verdict. The room didn't cheer. The world didn't stop. But I breathed. Fully. Finally. They cuffed her after she screamed at a clerk and hit a camera. I didn't witness it firsthand. I saw it the way everyone else did. On a screen. Framed in pixels. Captioned for virality. Woman detained after courthouse outburst. No names in the headline. Just vanilla outrage. But the video made it clear. It was her. Vanessa. Hair unbrushed. Voice cracked open. She was yelling about documents, something being forged. The clerk tried to calm her down. She screamed louder. Knocked a webcam off its stand. The feed wobbled as the image caught a glimpse of her face. Distorted, but unmistakably hers. Then came the cuffs. The blurred faces. The silence after the slam of the courtroom door. That moment spread faster than her version of the truth ever could. By the time the footage circled back to me, it had already made the rounds. Local news, gossip blogs, whispers from ex-friends who used to envy her. But none of them knew the real headline. Not what she did, but why she broke. It wasn't just the ruling. It was the unraveling of her story, the loss of control, the realization that the chessboard no longer belonged to her. In the following days, more stories emerged. Whispers turned to voices. Former lovers. A client who felt pressured. Her own sister, once her fiercest defender, released a vague statement asking for privacy during this difficult time. They all backed away, one by one, like furniture pulled from a collapsing floor. And just like that, Vanessa wasn't the predator anymore. She was the subject. A cautionary tale wrapped in a scandal and stuffed into the internet's back pocket, where people whisper, then move on. I watched the fallout with the volume off. Not out of pity, not to gloat, out of closure. Because this wasn't revenge. This was gravity. I didn't post. I didn't call anyone. I just sat by the window one evening, coffee in hand, and watched the wind knock a leaf loose from the last tree on our street. It spun for a moment, frantic, then settled into the dirt. That's how it felt. Not vindication, Not triumph, just stillness. The storm was over, and I was still standing. I brewed my coffee in silence. No voicemail, no storm. The silence felt strange at first. Not the tense kind that comes before a fight, but the kind that lingers after one. I stood in the kitchen this morning, barefoot on cold tile, brewing coffee the way I always used to before everything broke. No hidden phones buzzing behind cabinet doors. No second-guessing the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. No audio file waiting to detonate inside my inbox. Just steam and stillness. The house is mine again. Not just in paperwork, in presence. The guest room isn't a war room anymore. No folders stacked with evidence. No shadow files titled Q3 transfers. Just shelves and light and space to exhale. I walked past the mirror in the hallway today and caught my reflection. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. Not because he looked different, but because he stood differently. Not guarded, not hunted. Just here. I think that's what she never understood. You can strip a person down, humiliate them, try to turn them into a narrative that fits your exit strategy. But peace? Real peace? It doesn't come with a ruling or a payout. It doesn't arrive in the mail, postmarked closure. Peace is something you fight for. You bleed for it. You rebuild it in the middle of the wreckage, piece by jagged piece. And when you finally hold it in your hands, you guard it like hell. I still hear echoes sometimes. Of that voicemail. Of her rehearsed silence. Of the way David shook my hand like a brother while sharpening a blade behind my back. But now those echoes fade. Because I outlived them. I survived the fire she set. And I didn't just walk out. I walked out carrying the one thing she never thought I'd rebuild. Myself. Freedom isn't loud. It's not a parade or a declaration. It's a quiet kitchen, a warm mug, and the knowledge that I will never again trade my voice for someone else's comfort. So I brewed my coffee. In silence. No voicemail. No storm. Just me. And it was enough.